Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 13th of December of 2025. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. During the previous 24 hours, we received additional details and updates regarding the massive missile and drone attack that took place during the previous night between the 12th and the 13th of December of 2025. According to information we have, the Russian Federation attacked the southern part of Ukraine, the Odessa region, Kherson region, Nikolaev region, so this territory was under very heavy fire from the Russian side. And as we discussed during the previous video, everything started yesterday in the evening on the 12th of December of 2025, when the Russians, for the first time since the beginning of the special military operation, attacked the a commercial vessel that was located on the territory of the Odessa port infrastructure. So this is exactly the moment when the Russians attacked the territory. There was a very heavy explosion that led to the complete destruction of this commercial vessel that you can see right now in front of your screens. So this is the consequence of attack. The vessel was completely destroyed. The sources are saying that this vessel was under the flag of Turkey. Right after this attack, we have lots of reports from Istanbul, where the president of Turkey and the minister of foreign affairs stated that the area of the Black Sea should be an area without any clashes. Now let's move further. So once again, a few more updates about the Odessa region. So we have lots of pictures, lots of videos, and for example, here we can see another, let's say, place in the part of Odessa region, the consequences of attack. Here we can see according to the Ukrainian official authorities, 20 substations were damaged after overnight and morning strikes. Local authorities report that all traction substations are without power, causing the city's electric transport to be completely shut down. This image shows one of the previously damaged substations. So we have lots of pictures and photos from the city of Odessa. Furthermore, we have, for example, this photo. Here we can see the blackouts. Telling the truth, by the time I started making the video, some sources stated that this is not a real photos, that these are not the real photos, that these are just the photos that were made and generated by some neural links. I'm not sure whether these pictures are correct or not, but this picture was published today. So some sources are saying that here we can see the city of Odessa during the previous nights when the blackout happened. Furthermore, we have lots of videos and so on. So the situation, as you can see, is very difficult. The Russians attacked the Odessa region because during the previous weeks, the Ukrainians were attacking the territory of the Russian Federation from the territory of the city of Odessa using drones and missiles. So that is why the Russians attacked this territory, with the purpose to show that the Russians, if they want, they can do a very big damage to the entire southern region of Ukraine. Now let's move further. Another important article was published today by the Western media. According to information we have, Zelensky is going to meet Witkoff and Kushner on Trump's peace push. Trump is ready to provide security guarantees to Ukraine similar to NATO's Article 5 if the Ukraine armed forces withdraw from Donbas. That was stated by Axios. Such guarantees would have to be approved by Congress, and therefore they would be legally binding. We want to provide Ukrainians with the security guarantees that on the one hand will not be a blank check, and on the other hand will be sufficiently reliable. We are ready to send this issue to Congress for a vote, an American official stated. The only problematic issue is Europe, which advises Zelensky not to rush into a deal. So as you can see, the United States of America are trying to peacefully settle the conflict. They're trying to find a solution. They're trying to find a formula that will allow the United States of America to provide some security guarantees to Ukraine, similar to the NATO's 5 article. From the other side, we received today lots of very important updates from the Republic of Belarus, from the city of Minsk. So according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, there was a meeting between this U.S. Special Envoy John Coyle and the President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. So this is the moment when they met, and the president of Belarus stated that, John, I congratulate you on your new appointment. You're now our top official in Belarus. Tell Trump we need to do something about this, and we will. So according to information we have, John Cole stated that the US is lifting sanctions on Belarusian potash, according to Belta. This was announced by the US Special Envoy John Cole. We are lifting them now, said John Cole, as relations between the two countries normalize, more and more sanctions will be lifted. Before the sanctions, potash was Belarus' main export commodity, accounting for over 20% of all exports. So what is the connection between Belarus, Ukraine, and the Russian Federation? The thing is that we need to understand, if the United States of America are lifting sanctions on Belarus, this is similar that the United States of America is lifting sanctions on the Russian Federation, because if Belarus has access to the Western financial system, if Belarus has possibilities to use SWIFT, let's say for trade purposes, this is the same situation as if the Russians will have the same access, because Belarus and Russia is the similar and the same market. So lifting the sanctions on Belarus means that the United States of America is showing the Russian Federation that Russians can trust the Americans, and that the United States of America will also lift sanctions on them when time comes. This is a very important update. Let's wait and see what is going to be next. But as you can see, the Americans are trying to act both in favor of Russian region, Russian market, and in favor of Ukraine, trying to show both the Russians and the Ukrainians that both the Russians and the Ukrainians can trust the United States of America. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now, let's switch on back to Ukraine. We have lots of important updates. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions along the line of combat contact. First, let's talk about the western Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, several pro-Russian sources stated that Russians improved their positions around the settlements and between the settlements of Stepnogorsk and Lukyanovska. Several sources stated that Russians have captured this dense network of the fortifications to the southwest of the settlement of Lukyanovska. So these territories were captured by Russians, according to different sources. And this is a very important progress on the ground, because most likely the next target for the Russians is this facility and then the settlement of Lukyanovska itself. And right after these two settlements, most likely Russians will continue offensive operation in the eastern direction through this dense network of the fortifications until they get to the northwestern part of the city of Orekhov itself. Now let's talk about the eastern Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, as you can see, the map has been changed. This is the situation by the end of the 12th of December of 2025, and this is the end of the 13th of December. The Russians managed to cross the river of Gaichul at several and multiple places, and now the Russians are trying to dig in deeper along the Velika Street. The Russians are trying to improve their positions in the northern part of the settlement along the Dachny Street. We have lots of geolocations. We will not watch them due to casualties and violence, but these videos show us the progress on the ground, the confirmed Russian presence on the Ukrainian side of the river. So now this is the most important part of the battle for Gulay Pole, because everybody understands that Russians are trying to cross the river and to establish a strong foothold on the Ukrainian side of the river. This is the second phase of the battle of Gulay Pole. If Russians are able to improve their positions on the Ukrainian side of the river Gaichul, obviously this is going to bring them probably lots of possible ways how to develop their offensive operation further in the western direction until the city limits of Gulay Pole. Now let's talk about the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of very important updates. The map has been adjusted. First of all, the map has been adjusted within the southern part. According to neutral mappers, today they reported that Russians improved their positions and took under control several micro-districts of this area. Based on the reports that were published by the neutral mapper, we have adjusted the map in this area, so this is the situation. Furthermore, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that Ukrainians during the previous 24 hours carry out a counter-offensive operation in this area with the purpose to unblock Ukrainians in the northern part of the city of Mirnograd. The Russians are saying that Ukrainians launched their counter-offensive operation from the area of the settlement by the name of Shevchenka. So Ukrainians counter-attacked in the direction of the TO515 road, but the Russians are saying that the Ukrainians suffered losses and were forced to fall back. Furthermore, the Russians published the video from this area. We will not watch this video due to lots of casualties and violence and scenes of all this stuff. But the sources are saying, and this video shows us losses that most likely Ukrainians suffered during this counteroffensive. If you have access to the map, you can always check this video along the TO 515 road on the intersection between the Olympийskaya Street and this road itself. So lots of motorcycles, vehicles, lots of vehicles were destroyed and abandoned by the Ukrainians. Now let's talk about the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions in the area of the settlement by the name of Bereztok. This information this morning was provided by pro-Russian sources. According to their information that they received from the soldiers on the ground, the Russians began offensive operation from the village of Ivanopolia through this dense network of the fortifications in the direction of the settlement of Bereztok. So this is the change. These are the changes on the map between the dates. This is the 12th and this is the 13th of December. The Russians improved their positions in most likely in coming hours. The Russians most likely will begin offensive operation in the direction of the village of Bereztok, at least from 3 directions, with the purpose to take the settlement under control, under complete control, to maintain the lines between the southeastern part of Konstantinovka and the settlements of the armored force and the settlements in the area of the Kliban-Bytskaya water reservoir, and then from these positions to continue offensive operation further in the northern direction towards the Konstantinovka citadel. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Siversk. Just a few days ago, we had reported that the Russians improved their positions around the city of Siversk. So this is the way how the map was adjusted during the previous days. So this is the end of the 6th of December. And starting from the 6th of December, we were adding more and more territories, more and more blocks of the city of Siversk under complete control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. This is the situation by the end of the 12th of December, and this is the end of the 13th of December. As you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly. The Russians managed to establish complete control over the dense network of the fortifications to the north of the settlement of Sviatopokrovsk. These territories were taken by Russians, according to mainly pro-Russian sources. Furthermore, we have a video that confirms Russian control over the central part of the settlement of Sviatopokrovsk. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking possible positions of Russians in this area with FPV drones. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. We have adjusted completely the eastern part and the central part of the settlement, and we have added significant gray zone further in the western direction. Furthermore, as you can see, the Russians managed to take under control the territory along TO 513 road between the city of Siversk and the settlement of Yampol and Zakitna. So we're talking about these territories. These are the changes on the ground. We see that Ukrainians are not showing any resistance to the armored forces of Ukraine. We see that Ukrainians are trying to maintain the line, and Ukrainians are retreating with the purpose not to be encircled by Russians who are currently advancing in the area of the settlement of Zakotna. The situation in this region is very difficult, and telling the truth, it is very difficult to predict where exactly the Ukrainians would be able to stabilize the situation. Very likely that Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from the city of Siversk almost until the Slaviansk nuclear power plant. So most likely Ukrainians will be able to stabilize the situation in the area of Nikolaevka at least for several weeks or maybe months, but the gap, the territory between this yellow line and the city of Siversk, most likely there are going to be very heavy clashes here. Most likely the Russians would advance here. We're not saying that they are going to advance very fast, but they will advance. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Kupiansk, where Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation. During the previous 72 hours, huge changes on the ground were recorded in this area. The Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly. So this is the situation by the end of the 8th of December of 2025. This is the map, this is the configuration, and this is the moment when the Ukrainians launched their counter-offensive operation. Not exactly the 8th of December, they started earlier, much earlier, somewhere at the beginning of December, but we start receiving first updates and first changes from more or less reliable sources just from the 8th of December. And this is the way how the map was adjusted. I would like to remind you that yesterday Zelensky made a video right on the entrance to the city of Kupiansk, trying to tell us that everything is under control of the armored forces of Ukraine. So as of now, we don't know for sure what is the status of the western part of the city of Kupiansk. One thing is clear, the Ukrainians Ukrainians continue their offensive. But another important thing came today on the surface. The problem is that Ukrainians, we know that they don't have lots of reserves. They don't have them, basically, due to many problems, due to the mobilization issues, due to many issues that Ukrainian soldiers are leave their, let's say, their military forces, their brigades, their battalions, and so on. So that is why Ukrainians, to carry out these counter-offensive operation, first of all, were forced to take these forces from somewhere. Of course, the Ukrainians didn't have any chances to take them from the Mirnograd direction. They had no chances to take them from the Zaporozhye direction. So that is why Syrsky decided to take units to organize this counter-offensive operation from the Sumy direction. Syrsky took everything from this area, redeployed these forces in the direction of the city of Kupiansk, and began counter-offensive. He did this because there is a railway connection between city of Kharkiv, Sumy. So it's not a very big deal to redeploy these units in this direction. So it can be much faster and much flexible in comparison with any other direction. So Syrsky took forces from the Sumy region and he redeployed them in the direction of the city of Kupiansk and began counter-offensive operation. And of course, the Russians noted the situation. They discovered this maneuver that was carried out by the Ukraine armed forces, and that is why the Russians began their counter-offensive operation in the area of the city of Sumy. Now the Russians are counter-attacking, and now the Russians are trying to restore control over the territories they lost during the Ukrainian counter-offensive operation that took place between August and November or October of 2025. So these are the changes on the ground between the previous days. Now the situation is, telling the truth, very risky, because Ukrainians took their reserves from the Sumy direction, they redeployed them to Kupiansk direction. Now Ukrainians use these reserves not for defense purposes but for counter-attacks, which means that Ukrainians suffer huge loss. No, I'm not saying that huge loss, but obviously the losses during counter-attacks are higher in comparison with the situation when you are in defense. So that's why we can make a conclusion that obviously the losses are a bit higher than the normal situation, usual situation for Ukrainians. And now Ukrainians most likely will start suffering problems in the Sumy direction. Russians obviously will use this situation. They will advance further in the southern direction with the purpose to create risks for the city of Sumy, which will at the end force Ukrainians to redeploy their forces back. So, but the question is whether the Ukrainians are able to, let's say, stabilize the situation in the area of the city of Kupiansk, at least along the river of Oskol, until before Russians get the city of Sumy from the north. So this is the main question, and this is the deal. This is the deal that Zelensky and Syrsky made about the situation. Now, let's wait and see, of course, what is going to happen next. As you know, this weekend, Zelensky has a meeting with Europeans, with the French president, with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, with the Chancellor of Germany, probably the President of the United States of America will join them on the matter of the peaceful settlement of the conflict. Going to be a very difficult conversation, a very difficult meeting. Tomorrow, most likely, we'll understand everything. Obviously, the Europeans will try to convince the President of the United States of America to continue supporting Ukraine during the war, during this situation. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.